Hi, friend. This is Alex McRobert, founder of the Mindful Life Practice, and you're listening to the Sober Yoga Girl podcast. I'm a Canadian who moved across the world to the Middle East at age 23, and I never went back. I got sober in 2019, and I now live full-time in Bali, Indonesia. I've made it my mission to help other women around the world stop drinking, start yoga, and change their lives through my online Sober Girls Yoga community. You're not alone, and a sober life can be fun and fulfilling. Let me show you how.
For me, feel free to ask them.
Oh, I can go. So I have a question. What's exactly in the new program?
That is a great question. Thank you for asking, Yasser. I didn't tell him to ask me this. So the Entrepreneur Mastermind, it's actually quite similar to a program that I used to run called the Exit Plan. And the Exit Plan is a one-year program to help you build a business and quit your day job. And the Exit Plan included group coaching and one-on-one coaching and workshops on basically everything I learned in my time period of building the Mindful Life practice. So what the new program consists of is it's once a week meetings with our little cohort. You get a one-on-one coaching session with me once a month. And we're also doing book study on entrepreneurial things like marketing and financial management and networking and all of those practical skills for building a business. And as well, there is an opportunity to do once a month hot seat coaching where one person gets coached by me in the group setting. And I love what Jenny said the other day about just being in community with other entrepreneurs, like-minded people. I think that's one of the real values of it, is just getting into this small little group to connect and support each other throughout our journey. Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks for asking.
Like an incubator, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool to see people's work evolve over time. So I led this group I think I started it in 2021 in September, and it was all teachers that were in the group, which was really cool. And one person was building a graphic design business, and one person was building a writing coaching business, and one person was building a coaching business as well. And we did all of these things side by side, and it was really cool to come together and connect and share about our growth and our struggles and challenges, and just have each other supporting each other along the way.
Actually, I would love to hear more about that. If you have other thoughts about, like, based from your own experience when you were starting the Mindful Life practice, if you felt like if you were doing it sort of on your own and without others, that idea again of being in community with others who are sort of trying to do the same thing as you. And some people can go off and start something and they're self-motivated, and some people need that, I think, the community sort of support to help motivate and inspire and move them along. So I'm curious to hear about your own take on that, your own experience with starting the Mindful Life practice. And I guess, right, if you've sort of seen how one style works better for you versus the other, or if you now leverage both.
That's a great question. When we were doing that interview with JoJo earlier, I actually was thinking to myself, man, I wish that I connected with her earlier. Like, this is the first time we've spoken in 3 years. We followed each other on Instagram and like little messages here and there, but actually sit down with someone who literally, of all the people I've interviewed this week, I would say she has the most similar business to the Mindful Life practice. In terms of like, even though it's not yoga and meditation, it's like this online platform and community basically. And I feel like there was so much that we could learn from each other. And when I'm sitting in that interview, I'm thinking like, man, I wish that I had been connecting with her since like 2020, because there's just so much that can come from sharing together and connecting together. And I do feel that as the mindful life practice has evolved, I've gotten more and more into like collaboration and learning from people, like all the networking, podcast networking, talking to different entrepreneurs, different people in sort of the sober coaching sphere, yoga sphere, and learning from them. But I do think that there is like real value in having your little group of other people that are moving in the same sort of direction as you and on the same path.
Yeah, I love that. And there's part of me that was thinking, do you now look back and realize that there were others around you who you already knew, who were in your life in one capacity or another, who were trying to start their own thing, and each of you was sort of doing it in your own silo at the time, maybe in part because of the pandemic. But I feel like, yeah, again, I referenced this earlier, I think, but in a separate conversation, but that idea of, it feels like you have been able to pull from your own previous history of teachers and, you know, people that you encountered on your own life path and bring them here now. And so it's just, yeah, it's so interesting, so powerful to me to be able to see. But I do, yeah, I wonder if it's sort of like, oh, okay, here we were all kind of trying to do this and doing it on our own. And now you've been able to watch people emerge.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing. It's been pretty incredible to see some of those things. Like I remember JoJo, because I remember when this whole thing was happening, when all the fitness instructors were going online, and I was really looking to like what everyone else was doing. And I remember JoJo was one of the people that I was looking at and seeing what she was offering. And I was constantly like trying to figure out if I was doing the right thing, you know. And I remember these Instagram lives and then her offering them for free and then coming out with the platform. And it's just been, it's been amazing to watch people evolve during that time.
I have another question. So I want to know, like, what keeps you motivating now? Like when things are going well or when things are not so well, and how do you keep coming with like new things to like with the business and all that?
That's a great question. I think it's like really when you've found that you love what you do, then the motivation is just there, you know? Yeah, like it's just really what I love to do and what I was meant to do. And it's all just kind of come naturally.
You're making me think again of JoJo's comment in the last session about having to find that right balance though, right? Like that you can do something that you love, but if you push it to an extreme too far in one direction, you could wind up hating it. Or I suppose if too far in the other direction, if it's not meeting your needs, if you're not able to make a living off of it and it becomes stressful constantly all the time, then I love hearing, I'd love to hear more about striking that balance for yourself.
Oh my God, it's been so hard. Actually, that is why JoJo's interview resonated with me so much, because I've struggled so much with that balance. And I'm sure like you guys have seen that over the years of me trying to like teach yoga at every time to fit every time zone, or teaching until midnight, teaching until 10:30 p.m. on a Thursday. And I feel like I've ended up points where, I've winded up hating it because I've just been so exhausted. And I think it is really, I think I need to learn this lesson, and it's something that I'm really striving towards. I'm really moving in a direction towards. And it was amazing to hear JoJo say that today, because I've been doubting myself in some of the decisions that I've made recently around like restructuring the mindful life practice and some changes. And I've just made a decision to start reducing the class schedule because we have so many classes. And like JoJo was saying, you know, our members are spread out amongst the classes. There's very few people in a lot of the classes. And then as a result, I'm just kind of working 24/7 to manage this giant platform when I don't really want to be doing that. And then I've been doubting that, and people are coming back at me with like, oh, what about this? What about that? And I've been doubting, like, did I make the right decision? And I think what Jojo said today about like, if I'm teaching less, then I can be the best teacher I can be. And we'll have those videos to share with people, so it doesn't need to be like, this kind of all or nothing thing. Like I have to teach it all hours a day or people cancel their memberships or whatever. So I think striking that balance, I don't think I'm an expert on it at all and think I'm like still learning it, but it was very reassuring to hear Jojo's sharing and realize that I don't need to be working 24/7, and it's probably better if I'm not.
Right. And like so many other things, it sounds like for neither one of you did it happen overnight, right? That you kind of had to go through the experience of not having balance, and maybe that is part of building a business in the early days, but to then stay present to yourself and keep checking in with yourself about like, is this working for me? And and even as you were just talking about that now, I'm thinking like you've created a living, breathing entity, right? That is the Mindful Life Practice community. And just like humans, everything evolves and grows and changes over time. And so what worked during the pandemic when more people were shut in and had, kind of round the clock downtime, or were looking to fill time, and people had more availability perhaps to teach, and so like what I hear you saying is it's so important to stay present to what works in the here and now. And I love Yasser's question of asking, how do you I guess kind of how do you kind of keep yourself connected to that, right? And to keep yourself up and not get burnt out or down when something doesn't kind of work the same way. Like, how do you keep going? There's part of me that was like, do you ever just lay in bed though and sort of just like need to like take the fetal position for a minute and be like, oh, I need a break?
I think the lowest time I've ever had as a business owner was when the whole website crashed. That was the day when I think that was the lowest day where I definitely probably took the fetal position. I don't think any other moment has been like that. And I think that was before Linda was part of the MLBC, so you wouldn't remember this, but I hired a web developer and paid her like 10 grand, and the website literally did not work. Nothing was clickable. Nothing was interactive. It was so bad. Like, I can't even describe how bad it was. Anyway, overnight we were like, we need to pivot back to the old platform, and we just pulled it together in like 3 days. The web address didn't work properly, like because it had switched to a new domain. So then we were using like a different domain name for like a few days. Like, it was just all absolutely crazy. And I thought the whole business was collapsing because I was like, I run an online business and people can't like access my website or make sales. And I was about to quit my job. Like, I was about to quit my job like in a month. Anyway, it took about, I think it was like 3 days, and the website came back together, but that was probably like the most fetal position time. Nothing has been as bad as that. There was one point when I thought the whole business was going to close in May, actually, because I hadn't paid my business license renewal, and I got a warning from Stripe, and I thought the whole thing was going to shut down, and it didn't. They made an extension for me. So it's a lot of learning.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that, because I think that also, it humanizes the person that, so many of us see at the forefront running a business, where it's like you see the face and the person who shows up, but you just showed the human side behind it. And I mean, obviously I know that you are human as well, but it's like this reminder of that everybody is going through things, learning new things. Nobody's kind of a master, no matter how kind of advanced in something that they get, that people still have anxieties and trials and tribulations and speed bumps in the road. And so it's just super humanizing to hear that. And I think I'm so grateful to you for being willing to share that, because I feel like that it helps me, and I think it's going to help so many other people who listen to this to just sort of go, oh yeah, okay, you can look at people that you admire who are doing things, you know, and go, oh, I like, how do I get to be like them? But to really hear the kind of some of those behind the scenes things is just so humanizing and helpful.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that it was helpful or resonates with you.
Yeah, I want to ask the same question you asked all the guests. What did you want to do when you were a child, and have you ever thought of being owning your own business?
That was a great question, eh? I don't even know how I thought of that to like start out the interviews, but that was cool. Um, what did I want to be? You know, when I was young, I had different phases of my life of things that I wanted to be when I grew up. So at one point, I really wanted to be an architect. My parents bought me like an architect software, but I think I really like spaces and like designing spaces and creating spaces. And I think that might have had to do with my childhood. So my dad was a hoarder. So I grew up in a house that was really kind of chaotic. And I love this idea of just like creating a calming and beautiful space. And then I, at one point, wanted to like run a school. So I think I really wanted to like educate. And then I also did want to be a yoga teacher, which I don't even remember. But when I was 10, I started yoga for kids. And I actually wrote in a newspaper article, a family newspaper article, like breaking news, Alex wants to be a yoga teacher when she grows up. And I didn't even remember doing that. And my sister found it like years later. So I think when I look back on all these things, I think they still all kind of tie together of like being an architect was like about creating space, you know, and being a yoga teacher is like what I do now, running a school or like being a teacher, kind of like running our community. So I think it all kind of ties in and is related, even if it's not exactly what I ended up doing. Great question. Jenny, do you have any questions? I know she's busy getting Thanksgiving ready. Or Linda, I just saw you unmuted. Do you have another question?
Oh no, I'm still making a pumpkin pie, the first crust. But you know, and I'm sorry, like you guys are like raving about that session that I missed. I'm sorry I missed it. So I'll go back and I'll listen to it. But I had a wonderful gratitude party with my peeps here in the States, and it was amazing. Not many people showed up. So I thought it would go really quick, and that, you know, maybe it'd only last a half hour because there weren't very many people. And we almost took up the whole hour. Everybody was really happy and sharing, and it went really well. And then I finished up with a meditation, and it was great. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this journey. And like you said, building your business and loving what you're doing. It's so important. And I do. I'm loving it.
I love that you did that. You took initiative to gather that group together. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm still trying to build up my following. I have to say the people that were there were probably not my ideal clients, but they have been my supporters and my, you know, people who have had my back like through my entire journey. So they're the ones that will comment and like my posts, and which is really nice. So you need those people too.
Totally.
Yeah.
Alex, I really enjoyed that kind of, well, when you mentioned that you grew up in a house where you felt like, you know, your dad was a hoarder, hanging on to things, and I just got this vision of then this little girl who went out and like lives all over the world, you know, that you like have created the most spacious place for yourself to live in because you live all over the world, right? Like, that was so beautiful to me to learn that about you and go, oh, that makes so much sense. Like, here she is in this expansive space for herself now, and creating communities. I love too hearing that you were, you know, like enjoying building and this idea of being an architect. And it's like, oh yeah, okay, I see how that translates into who you are now and what you're doing, for sure. Like building virtual spaces.
Oh, that's so awesome. Thanks for sharing that. That's so, I love that connection of, I didn't even think of that, of like my dad being a hoarder and growing up in this like small, I had a really small house in Toronto. I grew up I lived in like Midtown Toronto. And so I had this tiny house, and my bedroom was, it's so narrow that you can't even fit your whole body doing yoga across it. Like I do yoga. When I went home to Toronto, my mom was like, I don't even think both of us can fit in this room. And I was like, we can. But we like hit each other. And then that's with all the furniture removed. There's no furniture in that room anymore.
I remember
And
seeing
so
you, yes, I was in one of your classes where you taught from that room with your mom next to you. Yes.
yeah, it's tiny, tiny. And that I removed everything from it, the bed, the desk, the everything, because I actually don't even think I knew what would happen, which would be that it would become like this yoga studio, because this was like pre-pandemic. But I just went home one summer and I was like, I don't want any of this stuff in this room anymore. And my sister's room is a bit bigger. It fits a double bed, so I stay in her room when I'm home. So anyway, yeah, I emptied everything out, and then my mom turned it into a yoga space, which has been great because she has it for yoga, and then I can do it for do yoga in there. But yeah, this idea of like, I grew up in a really small space, and now, yeah, I've just created a really spacious life. It's everywhere. Love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if we don't have any more questions, does anyone have any other questions or any other things? Amazing. Well, then we can wrap it up. But this has been so lovely. And I just want to thank you, Linda and Jenny, for joining, especially on Thanksgiving with so many other things going on. I just really appreciate your presence and being here. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Alex, for doing it. I appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank
It's
you,
been
Alex.
lovely.
Hi, friend. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Sober Yoga Girl podcast. This community wouldn't exist without you here, so thank you. It would be massively helpful if you could subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast so it can reach more people. If we haven't met yet in real life, please come get your 1-week free trial of the Sober Girls Yoga membership and see what we're all about. Sending you love and light wherever you are in the world.